Come on, Twitch. Nope. Making loud noises with my keyboard. Just to tell the world that we're streaming, because it's very important. I've sort of fallen down to one stream per week here, because it's been really cold and cloudy for the past 6 months. So my energy is at an all-time low. But it was sunny for almost a full hour today. So we'll try and make it, do some stuff. Streaming, game dev, gonna break rocks. So we're still basically just sorry, I was looking at Twitter because that's where I posted it. And someone said something interesting on Twitter. So today we're going to try and break some rocks. We're going to try and have an interactable, which, you have to click and hold while it's in the center of your field of view for a certain amount of time in order to crack it open and take the goodies that are inside, get that caramel nougat. And we're going to use, once again, just a placeholder object, a simple... now this is geometry brushes. I just want the sphere. The challenge for me is choosing between sphere and empty, which is also a sphere. But if you drag it in, you're not going to get a sphere. You got to get an empty. Brilliant, right? It's quite a thing. So this is a standard piece of rock, I guess. We're going to go ahead and harvest it. There we are. We're going to go ahead and call this a harvestable. And it's going to be an actor. So obviously there is a static mesh component in here, but it's not the base node. We're going to be able to replace it with whatever kind of static mesh we want if we decide we're going to, switch it out for something that actually looks like it's supposed to be underwater. This is a classic of the genre. Every survival game has some kind of trees to punch or, random ingots to hammer. And this is no different. The real question is whether or not we can make it so that the player can interact with these. And the answer to that is that we're going to need a special kind of collision test. At least I think that's how we're supposed to do it. I haven't found any other way. So if we were to look at this object, we should be able to tell it what sort of collision to use. This is the right thing, but it's not here. And I think the reason it's not here is because it wants the collider. Right now we've got this object here, which has a collider attached to it, I believe. Maybe. Yeah, here it is. So we can change this. But I believe we're going to want our own collider separate from that. Let's go ahead and just use this. So you can see we've got some options here. But what we really need to do is figure out what sort of thing we want here. Now, destructible is almost what we want, because technically we're going to be destroying it. But destructible is, as far as I know, an engine term for things that can break when you shoot them, like walls and stuff. Not an engine term for what we're trying to do. So we're probably going to want to create a new kind of object type. We have also got this ability here to do object responses, which there is a lot of overlap between these, which is very confusing to me. And I always forget which is which, but we should be able to just go into our project and add in some new collider crap. Here it is. So we can create a new object channel and a new trace channel. So I didn't realize that the object and trace channel... So the reason that they're so hard for me to keep separate is that they're not separate under the hood. I can already see that. You can have up to 18 custom channels, including object and trace channels, which means that behind the hood, they're in the same list. So that implies that there is something connecting them that is not readily apparent. We're going to go ahead and create a new kind of object, which we're going to call a harvestable. There it is. And we're going to go ahead and create a new trace channel, which we're going to call harvest. And we're not going to have it block, we're going to have it overlap. Boom. So in theory, that should allow us to make our harvestable object a harvestable collision type. My guess is that I have to reload this page. Let's just close it down, get it back open here. Let's try it again. There it is, harvestable. So now that we're harvestable, we can block everything except for the harvest, as you can see here. And that just means that this is something that, is an object. If you hit it, you're going to stop. But for the harvestable tag, the thing, the scan that we try and create to look for harvest objects, we're going to want to overlap rather than block, because that's going to be basically a sphere cast. It's going to be some kind of imaginary detector that doesn't actually exist in the world, and we don't need to block something that doesn't actually exist. We don't even want to, because it might interfere with the raycast. So this should be good. And so now what we're going to want to do is save that and compile it, and then head on over into our character. Dude, there it is. Shapow, here it is. So our character has a couple of things. Right now we don't need this open. Here's our event graph. We've got an onPlay and we've got an event tick. The event tick just drops down our oxygen. We're going to go ahead and pull this back. We're going to go ahead and create a chain. It's not a branch, it's a sequence, is it called? Sequence, there it is. Ciao. So if we create a sequence, then we can just do one of these and then another of them without worrying too much alike. So, but as you can see, we've got this delta seconds moving over here. We're going to want to do the delta seconds here. This is just, it's the same delta seconds. It's just that it's going to be cleaner. And when we do that, we can simply take this whole batch, comment it, and call it oxygen depletion. We're going to go ahead and move this over here. Comment it, call it HUD creation. And now we have a free tick event system for doing our sphere casting. So to do that, we are going to have to get our own forward vector and our own position and do a sphere cast. Let's do a sphere cast. Sphere trace, is it called? It might be called a sphere trace, yeah. So, multi-sphere. I don't really need a multi-sphere trace. I just need a sphere trace. Ah, here it is. So if we sphere trace by channel, here we have one. We'll drop this down here and do it. Pachow. And the trace channel we're going to be using is harvest. See? Now, the problem with this is that we set up harvest to, by default, block, which means that it's going to return everything, not just harvestable. So we're going to want to go back in and tweak that. That was just a mistake on my part. Oh, it's actually set up as overlap. Will that work? I don't know. We're going to go ahead and put it as ignore. I don't really know what the right option here is. We're going to have to try it out because it's something I'm not comfortable with yet. But if we put on trace complex, it's not gonna be what we want. Radius. This is in centimeters, so let's do a 1 meter radius. And we're going to go ahead and draw a debug so we can see it happen. But the problem here is that this should work. So here you can see it's a start 000 and end 000. I think that this is in world space, It's one of those things that doesn't actually tell you very clearly whether it's in world space or not. But if it's in world space, then we're going to want to grab this capsule component and get some values from it. Or do we want the values from the camera? I think we want the values from the camera. So let's delete this and put it in the camera instead. So we're going to get position. There it is. And we're also going to get the forward vector. Is it forward that I want? I can never remember how it's set up in each individual. I mean, it would make sense. Forward, the camera's forward should be what it's filming. All right, so let's save this, compile this. Sorry, this is actually end, not direction. So what we actually need to do is add these together. And this needs to be multiplied. Now, the only problem is I don't know whether or not the forward vector is in meters or centimeters. My guess is that it's in centimeters, and that means that we're going to have to multiply it by quite a large number, say 500. That would give us a reach of 5 meters, which is a bit much. Let's go with 250, which is still quite a reach. That's okay. And we'll add those together, and then we will drop it onto end. There we are. And we'll go ahead and compile that and save that and shrink it down and hit play. And you can see that we've got this red reticle in front of us. That is the reticle for the sphere cast. And in theory, So let's go ahead and eject F8. All right, so you can see that the cast is definitely there, but it's just a red flat cast, meaning it's not actually catching any of the things that we want it to catch. Oh, it switched this over to ignore. That's fine. We'll just switch it back. So because it detected that I hadn't changed it from the default, when I changed the default, it changed that value. But it didn't work. All right, so clearly there's something wrong here. And it's almost certainly how I've got this set up. So here you can see that I've told it to overlap on a trace response for harvest. Harvest is the trace that we're trying to do here. See, harvest. So maybe overlap is the wrong value. Maybe it needs to be block. The idea here is that most objects are going to ignore the harvest channel. So if you're trying to find something with your hands, none of these rocks count. But this needs to respond. There we are. Okay, so overlap doesn't work with SphereCast. It has to be block. That's fine. So now you can see that the only thing that this is picking up is this block in front of us. That red square in the center of that sphere tells us that this is the highlighted object. So that's good. And now what we're going to want to do is have that highlighted object become something that we're tracking, something that we care about. So for that, we're going to create a new variable, which we will call harvest target. And of course, it's not a Boolean. It's going to have to be one of these guys. Out hit, we break this up, break hit result, and we take a look. There's a whole bunch of values that we can get out of this hit result. We're going to delete harvest target for a second. We'll recreate it in a second here. Got distant, location, normal, physics, hit actor. Here's what we want. For the past week, it's been non-stop sirens. I don't know what's up with it. Makes it very hard to do anything with audio. So if we take this hit actor, we should be able to promote it to a variable. And, ciao. No problems there. This should be something that we're going to rename into harvest target. But of course, this is only the case if this part is true. So what we actually want to do is, what's it called? It's branch. There it is. This is only true if it's supposed to be... You know what? Actually, now that I'm thinking about it, it's always going to be true because the hit actor can be null, which would just null out our target, which would be fine. So once we set our harvest target, we're going to want to do a quick little debug and name them. So we'll just do a print. No. Log. I thought print was the one that I needed. No, it doesn't. It's not. Okay, so it's not actually a... It's not included because it's not a direct... Yeah, here it is. It'll cast it for me, but it won't assume it, so... The only question is whether or not this is going to error out when it's empty. We'll know for sure in a minute here. We're going to go ahead and turn off the debug draw. Save this, compile it, shrink it down, and take a look. So here you can see we're not getting any values on the left-hand side of the screen. But as we approach, yeah, see? It's called the harvestable. It works fine. So we are currently tracking it just fine. No problems there. But we're not doing anything with it. So we're going to need to create some interactabilities. One of the things we need to do is pop up some kind of HUD display that tells us that our target is what we're currently locked onto. Now, the problem with that is that I don't actually know how to add an additional HUD, but I think that it's just a matter of doing the same thing we did over here, this. So we're going to try that, and if it's wrong, it's fine. It's not a big deal. So we're going to want to have another HUD that we're going to have to set up, so we'll just... I don't remember where the HUD object was. It wasn't called a HUD. It was called a widget blueprint. Ah, there it is. So we're going to call this a highlight reticle. There we go. Pop that highlight reticle open. Here it is. And basically, we're just going to want to draw some kind of thing. So the only problem we've got is that I don't have any kind of assets. So I don't have a reticle, a circle. I just never made one. So I think it would be best if we actually went ahead and made one. Just give me a second. I will start up my art program and get everything ready. And hiccup repeatedly. We're going to want to go into this directory. How do I show in... God damn it. There it is. Well, it's harder to find than it should be. And then we're going to create a new, let's say 256 by 256. And we'll go ahead and save that in this location. We'll call it reticle. And bring you back. Hello. So this is our reticle. And basically all we're going to do is just create a circle. It's no big deal. There we are. And we'll just do a, I guess it's underwater. So we're going to do a layer of white. Shrink this down here. And then we're going to shrink it and do a layer of black. And then we're going to shrink it. and do a layer of, I don't know, orange, just because it's what we happen to have. And then we're going to shrink it one last time and delete. And that'll just be like a very generic reticle that we can just build. No big deal. Shrink that down. Import, please. And come over here into HUD. Why is it orange in the middle? It's not. Okay, that's fine. So here we have our reticle, which just has an arbitrary size. We're going to go ahead and anchor it to 0, 0 and make the size 256, 256 for now. We're going to go ahead and tweak that later, I'm sure. So this is now just an empty highlight reticle HUD. All it's got is one tiny little visual. And all we're going to do is come over here into this, and we're going to have a HUD object so that we can keep track of whether we've got one spawned in or not. We don't want to duplicate it a million times. So we're going to go ahead and create this HUD widget again, take this return value and promote it to a variable, and we'll call this active highlight HUD. That should probably be HUD rather than hood. No big deal. And you can see how this is a type HUD. No big deal. And basically what we need to do is over here, we don't need this anymore. We'll just delete these. If this is null, oh wait, we'll just take the Boolean, this here. So basically we're going to want a branch, just as we did before, but we're doing it after the set instead of before the set. And if we are false, then we want to delete the HUD if we have one. So to do that, we are going to do we got to create HUD widget and an add to viewport. Because there's an add to viewport, there is presumably a remove from viewport. Oh, we actually already got a HUD ref here, so we now have two variables, but that's a different HUD, so it's fine. So remove from viewport. Well, here's the viewport like setup. Is it in utilities, or is it just on its own? It's on its own. Okay. So let's go ahead and look at the viewport value, see what we've got here. It's interesting that there's no remove from viewport. Was there an add to viewport? I didn't happen to see an add to viewport, even though we're using it. So the hell is this? How did I get this? It doesn't seem to exist. Oh, it looks like I'm having some problems with the stream. Maybe. I guess it's fine. I don't know how I can... Well, I just went over to the stream to reload the page, and that broke the video card. So give me a second to reboot, and not reboot the whole computer, just reboot Unreal. It's an NVIDIA driver problem. Boy, can't wait for NVIDIA to get their shit together. Maybe it'll happen in 1998 and then never again. Exciting! Welcome back. So let's go back into the player character. Here we are again. And I was trying to figure out whether or not there's something special about... Okay, so if you're not dragging around a HUD, it doesn't actually count. It doesn't do its job. It doesn't show you all the options. But still, we've got an add to viewport and no remove from viewport. So if we were to come down into viewport here, there is no viewport this time. Am I hallucinating? Didn't I just determine that viewport was its own thing? Now it's inside of user interface. The way they rearrange this shit on the fly really confuses me. So we don't really have a lot of options here. And we certainly don't have the option to remove it from the viewport. So we're going to go ahead and look up how to do that. Unreal remove from viewport. How do I remove a widget from the viewport? In any blueprint, use remove from parent according to it. Unfortunately, it doesn't appear as if UnrealEngine.com is bothering to stay online. And we're getting, sub-dial-up responses from here. So apparently we're supposed to remove it from the parent. Why would you do that? Let's try it. Let's go ahead and do that. So here's where we're doing this. We need to remove it from the parent according to if it's false. So if we have a value here in the HUD, so grab this and use a get. Specifically, we're going to want a validated get. If it is valid, we're going to want to remove it from its parent. Okay. And then we're going to want to set it as... Oh, no, we don't have to set it as... Do we have to set it as null? I think we should set it as null. So we'll just grab this set and empty it out. Chapow. So that works. Otherwise, what we need to do is the same thing, the same validated get, but in the opposite direction. So if we already have a HUD widget, we don't need a new one. But if we don't have one, we do need a new one. Chapow. So that should be all we need. Yeah, let's try it. So we're going to go ahead and put in some comments. This is going to be remove existing widget. And this is going to be add new widget if we don't have one. Quite simple, quite straightforward. Just shrink that down and then come back over here. This should work. The only problem is that our current widget doesn't actually track anything, but we're going to want to make sure that it exists before we try and add any additional functionality, because just adding things has been troublesome in the past. Okay, it doesn't seem to have worked. You know what I didn't do? I didn't tell it what to add. Specifically, I think I left it as adding in the same widget from here, which is not what we want. Oh, and we still got this. Yeah, see, we've got the wrong widget here. This is create HUD widget class HUD. We actually need create HUD widget class highlight reticle, which doesn't have a player option, obviously, but that should be okay. I don't know why the player option is still here. Reset to default. Thank you. So we'll compile that. We'll save that, and we'll try it one more time. I think what we had was two nearly identical player HUD widgets instead. There isn't any sign that this worked. So if we take a look at the first person character, I can't get the details to show up. I don't understand why sometimes this works and sometimes it doesn't. That's so weird, because now it's showing up fine. Well, whatever. So we're out of oxygen. We're about to die. Our harvest target is a harvest target, but we forgot to set up our HUD element. Active highlight HUD. Accessed none. We forgot to make this visible. So clearly there's something going wrong here. I don't really know exactly what it is. So let's just keep at it. So it doesn't highlight which of these is currently giving us problems. But these are validated gets. They shouldn't be giving us any problems. Is it that we can't have a null here? I think that's fine. Oh, well, here. This we didn't actually pipe correctly, did we? Oh, you know what? This is not the active highlight HUD, so there it is. I think that's all. I think that's the only places that we were referring to it. So we'll go ahead and recompile it and take another look. This is why you have to check and make sure the basics are working. There, see, now it works fine. All we had to do was completely change what we were doing. So all we need to do now is move that HUD to where this object is on the viewport. In theory. I'm not really sure how to do that, but it should be fairly straightforward in theory. So here's our event tick setup. We're going to want to move all of this shit off to the side. Boom. Add another pin. And this is going to be moving the HUD if we have one. So to do that, we are just going to use a verified get. No, that's a set. If we've got a HUD, then we also need to check and see if we've got a harvest target. We should have one. There should never be a situation where we have one but not the other, but there might be. So if we have this and we have this, then we are ready to party. And basically what we want to do is get that harvest target's position on the screen. Let's go ahead and look it up, since it's not named any of the things I thought it would be. Unreal world position to screen. It might be called project. Project world to screen and project world to widget position. I think the widget position is exactly what we want. What do you think? Should be fine. Player controller. I guess that makes sense, because it would be whoever's screen it is. This shouldn't be... Why can't it be self? Is there... See, it's like from ID. If we ever do multiplayer, this is going to bite us in the butt. I can't tell who we are. Well, whatever. We're not doing multiplayer. So that should be fine. This is also the value we probably need up here. Yeah. I'm not sure what that owning player value is, but we'll go ahead and fill it just in case there's something important there. We'll move this down a little bit further. So we got the player controller and we have the world location. So we'll just So the harvest target is an actor. Actors should have a world location, right? Get actor location. It's not called world location for some reason. That's fine, as long as it is a world location. I'm not actually sure of that. We'll know soon enough. Player viewport relative. Okay, that's not important, at least not at the moment. So there's our screen position, even though it's explicitly not a screen position. I chose the one that was not the screen position node. So I'm not sure why it's returning a screen position. It should be returning a widget position. It's literally right there, 2 centimeters above it. Well, let's see whether or not we can actually set that screen position. Set position in viewport. We shall see. Well, it's wrong, but it's trying. Now my assumption is that... No. It's possible that the root location is not in world coordinates. It's possible that it is in local coordinates. But it's impossible for me to tell because none of this shit is labeled. Come on, Unreal. Label your shit. Another possibility is that... No, there's no subregions. It should be just fine. I mean, there's an explicit relative location, so maybe that is world coordinates. Let's go ahead and post it on the screen. Chapow. Boom. So that should give us the actor location. If we take a look, the actor location in this case should be 560, 870, negative 660. Negative 560, 870, 660. Yeah, there was a negative there. So that is in world coordinates, so we do have the right value. So where is this going wrong? Well, this looks like it's the exact same node. Let's go ahead and just switch it out. See if there's a difference. Yeah, there's a big difference. This one works, that one doesn't. So my guess here is that widget position is not what I think it is. And what I'm actually trying to do is arrange the widget on the screen, not arrange the widget in widget space. That's my assumption. So what we've got here is a fine setup. The only issue is that it's offset by a specific amount because our object is a specific size and it's not centered at 0, 0, 0. In theory, we should just be able to center it around 0, 0, 0 and it should work fine. Let's do that. There we are. Now it's in the middle of 0, 0, 0. And if we hit play and we go down and we highlight it, there we are. Perfect. And it says hello, lots, because I forgot to delete the debug print. So we'll just go ahead and delete that debug print. Boom. So now we have everything we need here. It's very straightforward. This is something we'll just delete. It's obviously not what we need. Move these up so there's not quite so much stretching. Just tweak them a little bit so they feel a little bit nicer for me. And then label the whole thing. And then over here we've got this, oh, excuse me, harvestable sphere cast. All right, so now we have our fully functional setup. The only problem is that we're not actually showing anything at the moment. So we can't click on it. We can't do anything like that. We can just look at it. So we would like to be able to start to click on it. And the interaction we're going to use is just to hold down the click. That makes perfect sense in a game where your oxygen is limited. So wasting time clicking on something is the point. So you don't have to like click fast. You don't have to do any of that stuff. Just the fact that you're burning 5 seconds of oxygen to finish mining this is the tense element. However, we've got no way to show any of the values that we're trying to show. We don't know how to set up a visual for how long you've clicked on it and how long you've got left and any of that stuff. What we really need is a progress bar, right? So we'll put a progress bar in. Pachow. We got a spammer, so we're just going to go ahead and block him. I guess that means I've only got one viewer. This is going to have a very specific size. We're going to go ahead and make it 256. Let's make it 200 flat and then a 30. And then we'll give this a -15 and a -100. Put it right smack in the middle. Let's make it a little bit thinner. 30 is too much. We'll make it 15. No, we'll make it 12. And then we'll make this -6. And we've got some value here where we can fill it up. See that? Now what we really want to do is change the color so that the background image or the fill image, one of these things has to be transparent. I don't really know which one. So this is set at alpha 1. Let's just bring this down to alpha 0. There we are. Perfect. And now let's test out whether or not that percentage fill still works. Yeah, so there we go. Perfect. And that should do, but we currently have no way of telling this HUD element what the percentage is supposed to be. So obviously what we're going to need to do is create the ability to feed this percent. So here we've got a new function called progress bar 0, which I don't like the name of. I can't rename it. Interesting. So here we are going to want to add in a tag, a variable. So we'll just add a variable which we will call %. Make that a float. Make it public. And drag it in. Pachow. If we take a look at %, we can change the value range from 0 to 1. I don't know how aggressively that is preserved. We will know eventually. I think it's pretty aggressive. Either way, we'll go ahead and just call that done. What we need next is for this harvestable object to understand what it is. So to do that, we're going to need a couple new variables. We're going to need harvest time, which we're going to also make into a float. And we're going to need a harvest counter. Gotta hit compile, come up to harvest time, and set it at 3 as a default. And of course, harvest counter is going to start at 0. And that should be fine, but we do need to allow this object to be harvested by the player. So to do that, we're going to want to use a function. So we're just going to go ahead and create one, which we're going to call harvest progress. So we're not going to call it, we are. Call it harvest progress. And basically harvest progress will take a float. There we go. And what we're going to do is we're going to return a Boolean. No, that's a byte. Boom. And we're going to just add to the harvest counter. So get, set, and then of course there's an add. And then we're just going to want to check and see whether or not the harvest counter is greater than or equal to the harvest. So that should be fairly straightforward. All we need to do is grab this harvest time and do a greater than or equal to. Do it less than? Yeah, float is less than float. So if the harvest time is less than the new harvest counter, so this is backwards, fine, we'll do a greater than. We'll do a greater than or equal to. This should really just be something where we can click on the icon in the middle and change which of these operators it is, but that's okay. And then that's going to be our harvested. Boom, like so. Easy as pie. The other thing we're going to want to do is have a function for %. So if we have a function for %, we're just going to want to return a float. And it's just going to be harvest time and harvest counter. All right, so it looks like NVIDIA is fucking up again. That's fine. We'll just do it blind. Oh, it's harvest counter twice. Boom. Now these are both public. Yeah, that's all good. So that's the basic setup. It's very straightforward, very simple. Now the only thing we have to do is restart this entire program because NVIDIA is being a pain in everyone's ass. Everyone is watching this. It's a fact. There's only 2 people on the planet. One of which is me. Welcome back. And we're going to go right back into it here. So what we need to do now is have it so that when we have all this shit set up, when we click, we add to the harvest. So to do that, we just need to make sure that we have some kind of action for clicking. We used to, but I think I deleted them all. We should be able to just add it right back in. Input action. So here is our input action fire. We have a pressed and a released. We're going to have to keep that in mind. So we're going to go ahead and add in a new, it's kind of off to the side a little bit. It's fine. Call this click. I don't know why it never works. Clicking. So obviously we're going to set this to true. And of course, set this to false. So that is the basics. And then down here, when we're doing all of this nonsense, well, guess what? There's another thing that needs to happen on the event tick. So, pachow. Here it comes. So what we need to do now is, you know what? This can actually just come in. Can I get rid of this tick? Remove execution pin. Yeah, this can just come after this, because it's only going to happen if we have an object and a viewport, and there's no reason to check twice. Object and a HUD, rather. So if we have all of this, then we want to check and see whether or not we are clicking. And if we are clicking, we want to send a harvest to the harvestable. So not a big deal. We'll just go ahead and do a, what's it called, a branch. And if we are going to be clicking, we're going to need to get that delta time. Is that what it's called? Delta, it wasn't called delta time. It was called something else. Delta seconds. So this is the amount of time that we've clicked. So if we're clicking, we want to pass this value to our harvest target. But our harvest target is actually just called an actor. It's not called a harvestable. So we need to change the type to a harvestable. That's going to require us to go back and reattach some of these values. It's not a big deal. Can I cast? I can't cast automatically. Cast harvestable. There we are. As harvestable. Pachow. And this is nothing. Delete it. And I guess what we'll do is we'll put this through. And we'll just ignore it if we found a harvestable that's technically not a harvestable. I guess we'll print. Print. All right, so that should be the same. And then I don't think there's any other situation where we actually set that harvestable or get that harvestable, except for when we're getting the world position. But the world position should be the same. Let's just take a look. Yeah, it's the same. So we don't have to worry about changing that around. I think that there's no other errors that need to be fixed here. I think that's all fine. But what we do have to do is send that value in. So to do that, we're going to grab this harvest target here, and we are going to apply the function that we created, which was called I can't remember. It was called harvest progress. There it is. Da-boom. Da-boom. No big deal. And then here we've got this harvested value. If this harvested value is true, then we need to remove the harvest object from the world. How do I remove something from the world? Destroy actor. Why is there a star next to it? Because it's popular. That's fine. So if we are going to be Boom. This thing is getting a little bit close, so we'll just drag it down. Obviously, this is not what we actually want to do. We're going to actually want to make it give you some resource or something, play an animation, whatever. For now, however, this will do fine. Once we destroy the actor, we are going to want to... No, I think that's fine. Because in the next pass, it'll detect the fact that there's no actor, and it will just automatically clear things. That should be fine. The other thing we need to do is, if it's false, then we need to tell our active highlight HUD what the percentage is. And how do we get the percentage? Pretty easy. We just get the percentage. Let's tidy this up a little bit. Good enough. We'll go ahead and put it inside a comment box. We'll call this mining harvesting. Not a harvestable. Because it's a null. If it's a null, it counts as not a harvestable. We'll see. So if we click, click. Perfect, right? So the only problem here is that it counts as not a harvestable when it should count as a null. I think what we can do is just, if it failed, then it's just going to be a null, right? We don't have to worry about it crashing or anything. Yeah, it's fine. So casting a null to a specific class of object apparently results in a fail rather than a null. But it also reports a null. So it's a fail and a null. But that's fine. It's all good. So here you can see that we've got this harvestable. And if we wanted to, we could create any number of harvestables. Where's this one? For some reason, I copy and pasted it, and it popped up somewhere completely different. Okay, not sure what's going on there, but we can drop it into the same world. And once again, the harvestable is... Oh, this one actually popped in correctly. That's fine. Just move that over there and bring it down a little bit. So now we've got 3 harvestables. Let's make sure that things work. Boom, shaboom, pow. And we can go, oh, stop. Shaboom, shaboom. You see how these are at 0.5? And the reason these are at 0.5 is kind of strange. It might be that the HUD... So we should be deleting and recreating the HUD, but for some reason it's recreating the HUD with that percentage set, which is not what we want. I guess what we can do is we can set that percentage when we first create the HUD. But if we continue the click, you're going to see it resets. So it's just a phantom leftover, presumably due to the way that the object pooling happens. We're not actually... When we create this HUD widget, for some reason it is... Oh, is it just me? Let's take a look. Where is our... we have variables, right? Where did how do we get to the variables that we created? Graph. Here we are. So if we take a look at percent, we do have the option to expose it on spawn. I guess we will. That'll be the easiest way to do it. But the thing here is there's no indication that this is something that propagates to every object in the class. It doesn't look like a static variable. So why is it propagating when we create a new object? Now move my mic around a little bit. My assumption here is that when we remove this HUD from the parent, it doesn't destroy the HUD. Instead, it puts it back into an object pool. Seems kind of clumsy to put it into an object pool and then not reset the values, but it's the only thing I can think of. Either way, we should be able to pass that HUD a new value. And that new value, here it is. There it is. So that new value is going to be a percentage. So for reasons unknown to me, we never bothered to put the player's value there. So we're just going to go ahead and do that. And we're also going to get that percentage straight off the harvest target. Now, in order to do that, we're going to have to expand this a little bit because it requires us to call a function, and the function is, of course, going to require us to have a there it is. This. This. Yeah, that. Shaboom, boom, boom. Perfect. I'll go ahead and save that, compile that, shrink it down, and then check and see whether or not it worked. Look at that, and then pop up. Look at that. It's not correct. This is strange. So my assumption here is that expose on spawn isn't operating properly due to the object pooling. But this is an awful lot of things not working properly due to object pooling. My guess is that I'm misunderstanding something basic. But, I mean, we can just manually set it. So that's what we'll do next. I'm going to be annoyed if this works, because it'll be the third time that Unreal has done something catastrophically stupid. Of course it worked. It didn't. Good. Okay. So there's something weird going on here. Now it worked? Okay. Yeah, I know what the problem is. It's not object pooling. It's me being a dumbass. So good. That's always good. It's always better to know that you're the problem. And usually you're going to be the problem if you're programming, because it's 1,000 people have worked on it, and it's not something where you should be having any issues. But the issue we're having here is that when our harvest target changes, we keep the same HUD rather than deleting it and reinstantiating it. So what we really need to do is, if the harvest target is changed, we need to reset the HUD. So to do that, we're going to want to compare the harvest target to the existing harvest target. And so we're going to want to like make some space. And basically, if there is no change in the harvest target, we don't need to do any of this shit, right? So that's what we're going to use as our branch. Boom. The only issue is I'm not sure when this executes. Obviously, if this executes after the set, well, it doesn't have to. We'll just move the set to the other side. Boom. So basically, if they are equal, then we don't need to set. And if they aren't equal, we do need to set. Basic stuff, right? You don't need whatever's going on here. Just delete that. And this cast failed. Delete that. Boom. There we are. I mean, I'm not super happy about the layout here. It feels kind of clunky. Whatever, it's fine for now. We'll just leave it. So basically, if we are not equal, then we're going to have to add a new widget or reset the existing widget. So this is going to go to that. Chapow. And then down here, if they were equal, there we go, then we're going to want to, we don't need to remove anything unless it's null. Okay, so if it's null, okay. There are 4 cases here. There is, we've detected an object and it's the same object. We've detected no object and it's still no object. We've detected an object and it's a different object. And we detected an object and it used to be an object. So these 4 cases need 4 different outcomes, and that's basically the double branching we're going to do here. So we're going to need to have a branch, but we're also going to need to have a check to see whether it's null. So still the same obj or null. And then down here we will, come on. It doesn't like these nested comments, does it? And then here it's a different obj or null. All right, so if it's the same object or null, then we don't have to do jack shit, I think. Except later on, we're going to have to do something later on. If it's a different object or null, then we have to do this stuff. So we add a widget if we don't have one. If it's a if it is an object, we add a widget if we don't have one. If we have one, then we need to do something slightly different. So we're going to go ahead and pull this out and move this over. Because if we do have a widget, it's a new object, and we need to reset the widget. And we can do that. I'm getting some sun in my face. We can do that just by setting the percent on the active highlight HUD here. So, oh, come on. And that percent is, of course, going to be, poof, move this out here. No, we just move it to the other side. My bad. Yeah, that should be fine. We'll just move it over here. I left it being called new param, which is just dumb on my part, but that's okay. So here, we're just going to separate this out so that it's a little bit clearer. There we are. And then down here, if we don't have an object, we remove it. Boom. Easy as pie. And then this, we don't need. If they're the same, then there's no change. We don't need to worry about it. All right, let's see whether that worked. That was messy. Yep, works fine. See? Nice. Now we do have a little bit of an issue because we are projecting from the camera. Projecting from the camera works fine, except for we've got a meter-wide ball that we're projecting, which means that if something is off-screen, just a little bit like this, see that? It's hitting the one to the left, even though that's not the one that should be hit, because we are scanning with a giant ball from the camera. What we really want to do is do a cone projection, or at the very least, move the ball forward by its own radius so that we're not going to hit things that are too far off to the side. We can deal with that later, though. It's not a big deal. And of course, you can see that we died 30 seconds ago. That's how it happens. All right, well, thanks for hanging out, everybody. This was fun. I will see you next week. Hopefully on Saturday. Hopefully I'll get back into doing things on Saturdays. But what I do on Saturdays nowadays is I actually watch Unreal tutorial videos. And that's hard to do while you're streaming, which is why I keep skipping Saturday, because it's like, well, if I stream, I have to stop watching tutorial videos. So, you know, I should probably just watch tutorial videos on some day that isn't Saturday. See you around. Oh, that's not going to stop it. That's going to stop it.